Well, good morning or
Good.
good afternoon, depending on where you are joining us from. Thank you so much for joining us for Global Advising Week. My name is Kylie Moody, and I serve as an Assistant Director for Strategic Initiatives in the NACADA Executive Office. And so I am so happy to welcome you all. As you may know, Advising Week is based around when NACADA was created. And so that is why we celebrate it around this time and really to recognize all of the great work that advisors, tutors, personal tutors, counselors, and coaches who advise students around the world do. So thank you so very much for all of the work you do. I am going to hand it over to Ana Del Rosario from Sophia Learning, who is sponsoring NACADA, the Global Advising Week, who is going to share a little bit about Sophia Learning.
Thanks so much, Kylie. Hi, everyone. My name's Anna Del Rosario. I'm a partner success manager at Sophia. And as a former academic advisor, I'm super excited to join you all today for this NACADA event. I wanted to start by sharing just a little bit about who we are. Sophia Learning is an online learning platform designed by educators for the modern learner. Our catalog includes more than 70 courses that are ACE recommended and designed for transfer credit. And we're also proud to share that Sophia was recently endorsed by the Higher Learning Commission as a short-term credential provider. Our mission's simple but important to help learners pursue their educational goals and expand their access to economic mobility. What makes us stand out really comes down to a few key advantages. First, our flexibility. Our learner-driven platform allows students to move at their own pace and fit coursework into their schedules. Second, our affordability. Students can access all Sophia courses for $99 per month with textbooks and their course materials included. And most importantly, we're seeing real impact. For example, learners at the University of Maryland Global Campus who successfully completed Sophia courses enrolled into their fourth term at a 37% higher rate than their peers. Across the board, Sophia learners have completed more than 1.6 million courses and have earned over 4 million transfer credits at receiving institutions. Before we move forward, just want to say that we at Sophia truly appreciate the work that you all do every single day to support students and help them reach their goals. Now I'll pass it over to Alana, who'll get us started.
Thank you so much, Anna. Thank you to everyone for being here. I'm thrilled with the level of engagement today. My name is Alana Beitzel. I serve as Assistant Director of the Rating Center at UNLV, the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. I am also a former academic advisor, spent 13 years advising student athletes, and I serve as the current chair of the Advising Student Athletes Community for NACADA. Thank you all for joining us for one of our virtual event sessions, Crisis Advocacy in Times of Constraint, brought to us by a trio of wonderful colleagues at Navarro College. I have the pleasure of sharing their bios with them before turning it over to them. So, Margarita Escareño is the athletic academic advisor at Navarro College in Texas. She holds a bachelor's degree in psychology and has spent the past 5 years building and leading the college's academic support program for student athletes. As the first person to serve in this role, Margarita has developed the structure and systems that help student athletes excel academically, stay eligible, and progress confidently toward their educational goals. I will add that Margarita is an incredible member of the Advising Student Athletes Steering Committee, and I had the joy of getting to meet her and get to know her a little bit more at the annual conference here in Las Vegas in 2025. Kinsey Ratcliffe Belcher is the Assistant Director of Retention and Success and the coordinator for the college's QEP. Along with 5 years of advising experience, Kinsey also has experience working in student conduct, housing and residence life, fraternity and sorority life, and student activities. And last but certainly not least, Emily Fegan is a college and career success coach at Navarro College. She has worked in higher education for almost 5 years with previous experience in the recruiting, admissions, and international offices. She works closely with students to help them explore career pathways, prepare for post-secondary education, and build the skills needed for long-term success. Emily is a co-founder of RISE, which is Navarro College's current QEP, dedicated to guiding first-time students as they set goals, overcome barriers, and confidently transition from high school into college, their careers, and beyond. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to this wonderful crew and really looking forward to learning about how to navigate crisis together. All right, y'all, you're up.
Thank you, Alana. It has been so much fun meeting you and getting to be a part of the steering committee and getting to learn more about NACADA. So I kind of chose to do this webinar because it was kind of something that I really understood when it came to crisis. So just kind of, again, I know she introduced us, but just so you kind of put some faces, kind of know who we are. Again, I'm Margarita Escareño. I am the success coach for athletics here at Navarro College. Kinsey's my boss. And Emily is a coworker, but we kind of understood and kind of worked together on how we changed how we advised our students. But first, we kind of want to get to know everybody. So if you want to drop your name and your role in the chat, what kind of institution you work at, share if you're new to advising, or if you've already kind of reached that peak and are on the downhill, whatever it is you are. We will, if you want to put some questions in the chat, we'll answer those at the end, or it could be something that will be answered during the webinar. But yeah, if you want to just kind of drop your name, kind of tell us where you're from, where you work with, what your student, what kind of students you work with. Yeah, if you guys want to share that, we'll wait for people to kind of put that in and just kind of get to know each other for just a little bit. Welcome, Stephanie. And Tamu. Ariana, 7 years. Stephanie, 18 years. Secondary education. Stephanie in middle. Alyssa at Drake University, formerly in admissions. Emily knows that. That's where we stole Emily from.
We did steal her.
Yeah. Susan, senior academic advisor at Emmanuel College in Boston, 18 years. For some of y'all that have been doing it that long, I'm going to need some advice. Janelle, I hope, did I say that right? Janelle.
It's a pretty name.
It is. Jennifer O'Leary, 2nd year. Joseph, Southern New Hampshire University. Eric, welcome. A JUCO alum.
It's a good range.
So are you advising, Eric, are you advising athletics in the NAIA? Janine, 16 years of advising experience.
Advising after 24 years of public ed. You are a brave soldier.
Welcome, Kayla, Katrina from East Texas A&M. We partner with East Texas A&M here at Navarro College.
Shout out East Texas.
Stephanie Grayson, another success coach. 4 years of advising, 8 years of admissions first.
Well, graduate student.
Director of Academic Services at Indiana, 25 years of advising. Matthew from Kansas State.
Oh, Hannah, welcome to the crew.
Living in San Francisco. Sam, student sex coordinator with psychology majors. Oh, that one's got to be fun. Monica Phillips, Mary Beth, new to advising. Well, welcome.
Seems like we've got a lot of one or the like a lot of new and a lot of good range. Tenured.
If you are new, please do not get scared of this. I promise you, it is not all bad. And we're here. Yeah. And we're here to share like how we get through some of this stuff. I'll keep recognizing, but we're going to go ahead and move on. But welcome everybody. It's so great to guys have you here. So what I would like to talk about is crisis advising and then switching that to crisis prevention advising. So one of the things that I kind of learned and understood, and coming into this, into this spot, like I said, I am the first person that is doing athletics here at Navarro College. So I basically built what this job does here at Navarro College. So trying to figure out, how do I advise, not only advise students, because I'm a first time advisor, it was, how do I advise student athletes? And why I feel this conversation matters right now, especially to all of us, whether you're new or veterans, everything that we've kind of gone through, is because us as advisors are asked to respond to more crises from our students with fewer resources. And what I want to do here is to help support you as advisors, but how do we support our students, and also protect our capacity as advisors? Because like some of it says, our students are experiencing academic, financial, and emotional instability. We are having to support these needs within, these constrained systems. Everybody's system's a little bit different. Everybody's budget's a little bit different. But as far as advisors go, what we have, is not what our students think we have, right? So just kind of like, well, how do we switch that? How do we reduce our capacity, or not our capacity, but how we work with that, right? How do we reduce our stress? So that we could best, advise our students, right? Under all the stress that we have and they have. So let's kind of talk about what they are. So what is crisis advising, right? So this is going to occur when a student is already distressed, they're facing an urgent situation, they come in like, I just failed midterms. I'm done. I'm not going to do it. I need to drop my classes. We're doing informed responses to student emergencies that focus on like, what do we do right now, right? We're just trying to handle that situation. But then it's like, how do we, like, having to do under that constraint, how do we get rid of that stress for the student and for us? So with crisis advising, it's reactive. We are only waiting for that crisis to happen. And so sometimes we're not prepared as advisors correctly. And it becomes a lot of work, because not only do we have to go in and find out, what is the crisis? How do we fix it? Am I going to have to go through all these resources? Is it too late sometimes for these students to utilize these resources? Because true story, I had a student at midterms tell me, I'm just going to get through this semester and become a tattoo artist. And then a week ago comes to me and says, nope, I want to graduate now. I need to pass my classes. So unfortunately, even though I do crisis prevention, these crises are going to come up. This is going to happen. And so also as an advisor, like athletic advisor, I had 2 head coaches leave this semester. And one literally just came in on a Monday morning and said, hey, this is my resignation. I won't be here anymore. So I had a lot of my students come in and say, hey, if I don't know who the coach is, like, I'm leaving. I need a plan to leave now. So even though that kind of happens, it's emotional, there's time constraints, it's a lot of work trying to find all these resources for these students. So on some of them, we know that we can prevent them, right? So if we can prevent that from majority of our students, that's what we need to do. So let's go into what is preventive or prevention advising or preventative advising. And because, like I said, this isn't going to eliminate our crisis, but it's going to reduce how often we as advisors are pulled into our high stakes, high stress response mode and into those situations. So this is like anticipating what these challenges our students are going to make. We can kind of hit it ahead of time, kind of get our students prepared and kind of let them know what is going to happen, what is something that they know that they're going to encounter, and kind of get them ready and kind of give them, all the tools that they need to be successful students. And it also helps them so that they're not coming to us in those moments of crisis. So one of the things that we kind of sat and talked about, and I'll let them kind of go through about it because they developed RISE and they can kind of tell you what RISE is. But one of the things we sat and talked about was knowing your population, know what patterns are coming for your students, and know the personalities, not only for the students, but for you as an advisor. What is your personality? How do we have to switch, right? Or on and off? Because I have some that I know I have to mother. And then I have some that, I have to kind of be a little softer with. So it's knowing their personalities and how you are going to react to certain situations as well. So I'm going to pass it over to Miss Emily here, who's going to kind of explain some other stuff to you.
Hello, everyone. I really hope my mic's working. Otherwise, this is embarrassing. So, I want to kind of start it off by saying that your system is very personal. It's the same thing that we tell our students all the time. There's not a one size fits all solution that can really be applied to how to be a preventative advisor, how to, like, what can you do specifically? What works for me is not the same that works for Margarita, that works for Kinsey. And that is based on those three things that we had in the last slide, which is the population, the patterns, and the personality. Those are all specific. Population and patterns are pretty specific to the institution, and personalities are based on both the student you are with and you as an advisor. So all of those have to be considered. We consider those key elements into what helped us shift from crisis to preventative advising. So going forward, these are kind of some examples of what we've done, how we did it. So I'll do, you want to talk about yours first?
Okay. So as an athletic advisor, and I'm the only athletic advisor, we have 9 different teams that are on our location. So after I went to NACADA and kind of realized that I'm not the only one, right? That was the main thing. I'm not the only one that is going through this. I'm not the only one that's trying to figure out a solution to help my load. And one thing I met with Alana about when I was there is I was already feeling the burnout. I was already feeling like, okay, I have my course load of my athletes is just a little bit under 400 right now. But I'm going into fall sports. So football is going to be bringing in more. Cheer is going to be bringing in more. We have 3 different competitive cheer teams. So I know my roster fluctuates from one semester to the next. So it's like, how do I make that a little bit easier for myself and for me to be best advise my students? So one thing I just implemented is my tier support model, which is where I tier my students based on whether, they're going to class, how their GPA looks, how I do my academic interventions. And this is worked with the coaches. So each head coach or whoever they put in as who is my contact for academics, this is something that I work on with them, and they have access to, like, you can see the spreadsheet right next to it. I keep a lot of information on my students, a lot of data on them. It gives the coaches information on when they're, projected to graduate. I have academically disadvantaged, economically disadvantaged students, and what tier they're on. So this is shared with coaches so that they can see. So when they're sitting there meeting with their students as well, and it also helps them know who has to do their study hall, who needs extra attention, who meets with me. And we discuss these at our monthly meetings, and we kind of go over what these students are doing, where they're at. And I kind of anticipate, depending on what tier there are, when they're coming to me to want to drop. And I know to talk to them a little bit before, like, hey, you got midterms coming up. How is it going? So I know who to reach out to, and I'm not trying to spread myself thin with 400 students.
400 students, like it's hard or something. Like, so the top 2 are examples from Margarita. The bottom is one of the systems we used for RISE, our QEP, currently for Navarro College, which we're not going to go too much into. We will be presenting a session at NACADA this October in OKC, so just come check us out there, I guess, if you want to know more. But it does address the organization that kind of goes behind understanding your population and your patterns and how necessary it is. Consistency helps protect both the student and the advisor. But there is also a limit to that, because with a caseload of, yes, hi, Rachel, yes. With a caseload of 400 to 5, I have over 500 personally this semester. So we can't track every single student and everything that they're doing and all the interactions and engagements that we have with them. So I found for me that understanding what boundaries I have to have as an advisor and what priorities I need to kind of track is really what helps me be efficient and effective with helping our students, because you can't do it all, and that's okay. From there, it helps me focus on the relationships with the students, which we see from literature and research is really the thing that stands out to them, the thing that is the most important with them. Stop it, you guys. That's the important part, is the relationships with students. And I agree, Raymond, you even said it, that sometimes students, the tension between different departments or what people are saying can affect the student and our relationship with us, or that we have with them. And that can really affect what we do and kind of start bleeding into that crisis advising and that mental burnout and that workload that we have personally. The next example would be what we kind of did to address our population. So this was, again, something that we did for our QEP Rise. This is our student timeline, our semester timeline for a first semester student at Navarro College. We started by all the advisors kind of got together and put together what are the trends and patterns that we see our students going through. What are those moments where they start coming to us, where they stop coming to us? It's complete silence for a week. It's kind of scary. Where they all come in and they want to drop. So we kind of tracked that. And then from there, we gave multiple students, a couple of dozen, we had them review the timeline and give us their thoughts on it and made some tweaks and adjustments, but overall it was pretty accurate. And from here, it really helped us kind of see, they were all things we already knew and kind of noticed, but together just looking at it allowed us to be like, oh yeah, no, week 7, they do all want to drop classes. That's crazy, huh? So from there, it was again a way for us to shift into preventative advising of, we know kind of when to send out certain communications or how to have certain conversations with students. For example, around panic level 1, you'll notice that's where most students come in asking about dropping instead of using any resources whatsoever that we provide. So that's where we can start directing them to those things, to instructors, versus panic level 3, we get to the spot of it's a little late for some things, but we can shift that conversation to future focused of what will this look like depending on these outcomes that you have. And I will hand it over to Kinsey, maybe.
Well,
Never mind, we have 3 seconds and we're done.
Started a timer somehow. Okay, there we go. Hopefully that's better. Hi, I'm Kinsey. I keep looking this way because we're all sitting in the same room right now, and I can't see the comments, so I keep checking out Margarita's screen. So I promise I'm not distracted. I'm looking at questions or comments y'all are putting.
I did my hair today, guys. She's just nice.
She did. She's beautiful. So you'll notice, like we talked about, you as an advisor are different personalities as well. The first couple of examples were very data informed, very numerical, very structured. I am a little bit more of a visual artsy craftsy girly myself. And so these are some examples of things that I made, not just to help me be a better advisor, but to help our students make more sense of what we do as well. So we as an institution and institutions across the nation have very complicated processes and policies, and just there are a lot of things, especially our first time students, we expect them to know, but they have no way of actually knowing. So what the heck is a semester? What is a second 8 weeks? Why is a mini not considered the same as a summer class? We all kind of think they know these things and they really don't, for the most part. And so we have learned that having these visual handouts really help them make more sense of the policies and procedures that we do have. So for example, we have a 2-year nursing program. And so we have quite a few students who want a bachelor's, but they cannot just jump straight into the bachelor's of nursing. They have to follow one of these paths. And as much information as we can put on our website, I don't know if y'all have noticed, our students don't really read very often. Little concerned about that. Actually, a lot concerned about that. Right. So putting this information in a more tangible and easier to digest way really helps us connect with the student. It has also reduced the amount of our conversations, like the length of our conversations. So before I made this handout down here, which is a laminated thing that I keep in my desk, and anytime somebody says nursing, I take it out and we talk about the application process and the timeline for everything. Before I had this handout, it took me over 45 minutes to even start to really explain. And so by the end of that conversation, the student is just, there's nothing there. And they're even more confused. Having something that they could look at in front of them and make sense of and take a picture with them, I can even email it to them or print it out if I need to. It really helps them understand it, and it makes that conversation actually go a lot faster, which is preventative on our end, because as we talk about our boundaries, we don't have all day to sit down with every single student, especially if you have caseloads that are above the recommended amount, which I think most of us probably do. Things like these are tangible tools that you can create that match whatever it is that your institution has. This example here, we call it the traffic light. That's for our SAP status mostly, but the academics and the housing, they use the same type of process, and really giving this metaphor to students really helps them understand it as well. And when a student drops a class for the first time, maybe it's not a big deal. Or if they failed for the first time, maybe it's not a big deal. But we still go over this so that way they understand the bigger picture of like, yes, because how do you answer that question? If I drop a class, will it affect my financial aid? Well, you're not going to lose your financial aid for just dropping one class, but it technically does affect your financial aid. So explaining the difference between that, we use this sort of worksheet to let them know that you can make decisions now that will have consequences far down the road. And so giving them that bigger picture actually gives them better autonomy and efficacy when they're making choices for themselves. So these are to help the student, but we also have these, which are to help us as advisors, because we've got a lot of first-time advisors in here. It can be very intimidating to know and learn all of the things. And nobody wants to be that advisor that the students talk about and say, well, my advisor told me to take this class and she's dumb and now I'm not graduating and it's all her fault. And it's hard. It's a lot of pressure on us to do that. And so we made these handouts as well. So I keep them in my desk drawer. We put them in our binders that we give to anybody who's new to staff, just to kind of help, again, present common information. We have something that's called the TSI. It's a placement test, kind of like in Texas specifically, kind of a replacement, I guess, for SAT, not a replacement, but an alternative for students that don't have SAT or ACT scores. And depending on how they test, depends on what level developmental courses they take. So that can be really difficult and dense content to really work through. And so creating something like this that is specific to your institution, that makes it more of an at a glance, really, again, helps you save time when you're advising the student, especially during peak seasons. And then also not feel like you have to remember every single piece of information, because we're not capable of doing that. We're not robots, unfortunately. We're going to forget things. And so even when it comes to sequenced courses and making sure that, okay, if I know that this sociology class is only offered in the fall, I have to be thinking about that as an advisor before that fall semester comes. When we're registering for spring or the fall before, I need to know that they need to have all the prereqs done by this time. And so having resources like this is preventative, because it really helps you be prepared and, again, make those conversations just faster, more concise, and then also gives you a more consistent practice. If all of your advising team are using the same handouts, all of your students are going to get the same information no matter who they talk to, which I think is also a form of crisis prevention as well. So, do you want to close out?
Oh, you can finish.
Okay. All right. So what we talked about a lot in preparing for this presentation is what could we tangibly give people who are watching this, and really we're just trying to give you the framework of here's how to use an Excel spreadsheet and tailor it. And we can send you all of these things. I don't know if we have necessarily a template, but we can send them to you so you can use that as a springboard to create your own version that works for you. And budget is a tough thing for any size institution, no matter what department you are in. And so we wanted to focus a lot on what is your creativity, because there's so many things as advisors that we cannot control. We cannot control the crises that do happen, like a coach quitting. We cannot control if a student goes to class or not, short of physically dragging them there. And I'm sure even there are some students that we could still physically drag them there and they still wouldn't
They just leave after I leave them there.
Yeah, exactly. So there's so many things that we cannot control, but and even institutional constraints like time, budgets, staff. I would love to hire, 8 more people and we would all have 20 advisees each and it would be great, but that's just something out of our control. But what we can control is our creativity. So when you're working with your staff, think about the skills that you all have, whether it's the more data-informed approach or the propensity to have a beautiful Excel spreadsheet and all the formulas that work versus the more visual creative. what skills can you and your staff put together to come up with a creative solution that can help you be preventative? So hopefully we've given you some concrete-ish examples of that today. And yeah, and I believe with that,
we will open it up for any questions that you have.
Yeah, I want to go back to one of the comments that I think Raymond put in that oftentimes instructors increase that crisis. Yes, they will tell the students, yeah, just go drop. Even after the drop date, it happens here all the time. They tell my athletes that all the time, and the athletes come to me and they know the first thing they're going to hear out is no. I've learned to say no in many languages. No, no, no. So it's like, it's just kind of understanding they're going to hear no from me. A lot of them will come up to the other advisors and say, oh, I need to do this. And they're real quick to say, no, go talk to Miss Margarita. But yeah, and it's kind of one of those things that I think opening up and learning and getting to know your faculty, and I know that could be hard at the bigger institutions. One thing that I started doing when I was working here is I would go do class checks. So I would walk around campus and kind of introduce myself to a lot of instructors, kind of tell them who I was. So I do have some instructors that will reach out to me personally before doing that and saying, hey, I have this student. We also have some programs that we do here, like we do what is considered the non-attendance. So within like the first week or so, they're letting for census, right? They're letting us know if their students are attending, if our students are going to class, if they're online students, are they completing any assignments on there, so we can get them ahead before they get dropped for census. We also do an intervention report, which comes right before midterms, about 2 weeks before midterms, to kind of see where they are so we can get ahead of that. And that's part of our preventative advising, is like we get to know before midterms, where are they? What are they looking like? So we can kind of talk to them before that happens. And then, of course, we do our midterm grades and things like that. So it's just kind of little somethings that we do that kind of help with that. But yeah, we do understand there's always going to be those crises that you're going to have with instructors going, oh, just drop. And they're like, well, my instructor said this. And, you know, a lot of times we're looked at just as the scheduler, right? You're the advisor, you just schedule the classes, when in reality, we're almost everything. And our students will come to us, like you said, they're going to trust the instructor more, but they think we have all the power, right? We can drop their classes, we can give them classes anytime they want. They think we have a lot more power than we actually do. So it's kind of, we're also like the translators to our students. Like, what are our process? What are our systems here at the school? Because like Ms. Kinsey said, when they're on the website, one, most websites, especially for colleges, are not easy to go through and not easy to understand. So we translate that for them, right? We're going to translate what our processes are for them. But we're their advocate, and we're usually that first responder when a crisis happens. So just kind of understanding what those are and figuring out a way like how to, reach out to some of the faculty. It's a little, I know for me, it's a little bit different because I know who my students are. I know what my cohort is. And so I usually use almost the same instructors that I can for my students. I usually put them in the same classes with the same instructors, just so they know. But I will reach out to my instructors as well and say, hey, again, this is Margarita. If we have new faculty, I introduce myself and let them know if you need anything, or if anybody, if it's a student that you need assistance with, like reach out to me. So I have a lot of instructors that'll reach out to me personally before anything else happens with a student. So we kind of, get ahead of that. But if anybody has any questions, like put them in the chat. We kind of talk, or you could unmute and ask the question, and we'll help you out.
We're so wise, please.
Ours actually goes pretty long. I think our drop date this semester was April 24th.
Now, if you're referencing when they can switch classes, I don't know if that's we have once the semester starts, they're locked in. So that might be a different interpretation of it. We don't do that. It's really fun. They don't like that.
Yeah, they could only change their schedule, I believe, just the first 2 days of class or first day of class. Then we don't do any more schedule changes. But as far as dropping a class through the semester, ours went all the way to April 24th. That is the one thing I do not share with my students. I do not give them the drop deadline. They don't know it at all.
Wow. Sure.
Yeah. They do not have that. They don't get access to that information. I know they're not going to go look for it. But this actually helped me because I was, like I said, I was at the burnout stage right before NACADA. Like I was pretty much like, I don't know how to handle this. I don't know how to handle 400 students and get all this stuff and no eligibility and know all that. Yeah, the instructors usually tell them. The instructors will tell them after the drop date too. They'll be like, "Oh, go talk to your advisor to drop the class." And I'm like, I had a lot. Most of my emails from my students about dropping class comes in the day after the drop deadline, and they're still getting instructors telling them to drop the class.
Or the instructor told them a week ago, but the student is just now trying to do it.
Hello, this is Ray. I thought it would be easier just to talk than unmute myself. I also work at a community college as the sole academic advisor for the student athletes. And we have a, so to speak, a student athlete liaison that works with all of the eligibility things. And if the students are eligible to play, and I work on the academic side. And things of that nature. How do you get your coaches engaged on updating you with practice times and schedules and things of that nature so you can accurately plan classes for students that doesn't conflict with their schedules?
I meet with my coaches once a month, but before registration starts, we talk about what their practice schedules are going to look like. So that way I make sure that my students are in classes. So majority of my students only come in classes in the morning. Most of their practices are in the afternoon, but football practice is early morning. So there's no 8 a.m.s for my football players. Cheer starts at 12:30, so they have to be out of class by 12:20. But I meet with my coaches on a monthly basis and we go over what their schedule is going to look like for the upcoming semester. And like I said, I had one new soccer coach last year. And then this year I have a new volleyball coach, a new football head coach, and a new basketball head coach. So as of this point, I've already met with all three of them and have worked out what their practice schedule looks like. So they send it to me. And then I have each of their schedules already ready. And I have a binder that I have all the schedules on. It'll say football times and it has the rules. Like football can only have labs for science or night classes on Mondays because they don't have a Monday night practice. So I make sure that I keep all that information from all my coaches. And that way, when I have that student come in, I know exactly what time. But it came with me meeting with coaches and introducing, like saying, hey, we're going to, I need to know what your schedule is so your students are not missing practice, or asking instructors, oh, I have to go do practice at this time or whatever. We try to do our best to work within that range. But yeah, meeting with your coaches, I reached out to them and I started the monthly meetings with them.
Thank you. I'm actually at a point where I'm struggling to get our coaches to actually participate in meetings. Um, a lot of our coaches are not full-time employees at the school, and so they're not always on campus when I'm on campus. And so that's something I definitely am trying to overcome, which is why I was looking at your for your opinion. Thank you.
Yeah. And I still have that. I still have some coaches that it's really hard for me to communicate with, and it's something that we work on. But I usually go to my athletic director and be like, they're not answering me. Because he's usually the one asking me, where are my numbers at? What are the kids looking like? Or the coaches will go to him and say, oh, well, this kid's in class and I don't need them to be in class. So he's really big on supporting me and making sure I'm a part of their athletic staff meetings. And actually, I'm actually just about to be moved under the athletics program this next semester. So it's going to be a lot easier. And the coaches are understanding that, hey, I'm one of them now, to know that we have to work together. But when, like, we're getting funded now by Success, right? So they have to understand that if they want money for their scholarships and their stuff like that, then they have to work with me because I'm that other coach. The way I kind of introduce myself to these coaches and kind of get them to understand is I'm just another one of your assistant coaches. Just like you have your offensive line coach and your defensive line coach or anything like that, I'm your academic coach. So kind of go with them like that. It's kind of just kind of speaking their language, honestly. Just like we kind of speak our students' language, you have to speak coaches' language. And kind of just, I've explained it that way. I'm just one of your assistant coaches. I just handle the academic side.
Thank you.
And Eric, yeah, I'm just started to go under athletics. I work really close with athletics, but I will be actually under my athletic director coming this next semester. But I've been housed in athletics. My office is actually over there. So we do work with our coaches and our AD to figure out those windows and make sure that they're communicating with me as well, what those practice times are. Any other questions, or is there something you have a question on, or you want information on one of those slides?
Yes, I have a question.
Mhm.
Masabata, I'm from South Africa at the University of the Free State, and our program with supporting student athletes is actually quite new as well. We're like 3 years in. And I just wanted to find out, what other departments do you work collaboratively with? Because in our instance, yes, we're the Central Academic Advising Office, and our focus, I think, is similar to how Raymond, sorry, operates, with his focus being on academics. But obviously, we work together with our sporting department, but we also work with our health and wellness department collaboratively to support the students holistically. So I just wanted to find out, what other stakeholders do you work closely with to ensure that your students get holistic support?
So I work really closely with our tutoring department. Of course, my other advisors, we kind of work things through because, like I said, we developed this together. Kinsey was the brainchild of all this, and we started together, and she was able to we kind of assisted each other, but she's kind of been like the brainchild of getting this preventive advising going. But I have to work really closely. I am the only one in athletics. So when I'm telling you that I do athletics, I do their advising. I do their eligibility. I have to know the NCAA, the NJCAA. I work really closely with my athletic director, admissions for my international students that come in. So really close with admissions, really close with financial aid as well, just to kind of make sure that we all working together and making sure that we're doing everything we can to get these students, like, try to make the admissions process a lot simpler and a lot easier, and make it a little bit more what's that word I'm looking for, streamlined. And then, like, with our tutoring department, kind of making sure that we have all the resources for our students. I reach out to her, and we're actually working on, for my tier 1 students, which are the ones that need the most assistance, and making sure that I go to her and say, hey, this student I'm going to send to you really needs a math tutor. And so we kind of make that for them. So working with those departments, we have a program called Bulldog Life here, and they help our students with accessibility, or kind of feeling, because most of our students, they said they wanted to feel like they were welcome, like they were a part of something. And so yeah, and so that was a one place to kind of send them, that also gives them a resource to kind of be a part of our college and part of our community. So yeah, I work a lot with a lot of departments and kind of close to them, but I would say mostly admissions, my athletic director, and advising, like, my assistant director and my director of student success, kind of making sure that we're all on the same page.
Mm-hmm. And should a student need counseling support, do you refer them to that particular office, or do you also provide that?
Yes, no, we have a program here on campus that we will go ahead and send them to.
Okay. All right. No, thank you so much.
Okay, there's a question in chat.
Yeah, Stephanie had a good one.
Are there any other tools you use to help students academically besides tutoring and study hall? We find our students are scared or unwilling to attend and get the help they need. Ms. Kinsey, would you like to talk about what you use?
So, our boss told us to submit a proposal for the QEP, and then it got selected, and we've just really run with that. So essentially what we have found, like Emily was saying earlier, research and literature supports that connection is one of the biggest predictors of success, especially among our students who are economically or academically disadvantaged, which for us is the large majority of our students. So we created our QEP as basically a supplemental advising program We do 1 hour sessions once a week, and we go over topics like resilience and adaptability and balance, and we play games and do fun things. It's very hands-on, not lecturing at all. And the reason we find that helps, a lot of students think we're tutoring, but we're not. But we find that that helps them academically because it gives them that space to not be so scared, because they're coming into a space where it's other students like them, whether they're first time students or returning students. It's just students looking for support, and they're seeing us as academic advisors, but in a much more relaxed environment. And so we're not sitting with a desk in between us, and we're not going over SAP status and financial aid. We're just saying, hey, how are you balancing things right now? And it just gets a conversation going. So while we don't particularly focus on study skills or like academic inside the classroom skills, we focus a lot on the surrounding skills, I would say. Yeah. Of time management and putting that in a very hands-on way, and not just saying go get a planner, because that just doesn't work for the most of our students. And so we find that being available more as like a human and less of an advisor has really helped our students get more comfortable with navigating the whole process, and even more comfortable coming up to our office to ask for things like, hey, didn't you say something about like a tutoring, or like, I don't know what to do about this class, but I see you all the time, so I figured I'd come ask you. And then we can direct them back to those more formal resources like tutoring, and they're a little less hesitant to go a little bit.
On my side of things, with my students, they have to attend study hall. Not just for me, from their coaches. They have a mandatory study hall they have to do. But yeah, they do that. A lot of mine will be like, no, I don't have a problem. I'm willing to attend. So most of the time it's them coming into my office, and we're kind of going over what it is that they need. Because usually by the time they ask me, I'm like, well, did you go to tutoring? Did you do all that? And they're like, no, no, no. And you don't know what's wrong? No. I'm like, okay, well, let's kind of go through this. And like I said, with the coaches, I have a really good relationship with them. So communicating with them, like who's going to tutoring, going over those tier things when I meet with them monthly is a good thing. Also, that has helped this semester with them knowing who needs the extra attention at study hall, who you need to make sure is there. So kind of knowing who your cohort is, right? Knowing who your students are, and kind of working with who you need to work with on that. Yeah, a lot of them, you're going to have those few that are just not going to go. So for Karma, oh my God, I love your name. The things I would do with that name with these students. Okay. So career readiness, with athletes. One thing I learned was when I told my students, what's your plan B? They hated me. They did not like that. They were like, oh, you don't think I could do this? You don't think I'm going to succeed? And I didn't say that. So kind of just talking to them. So now what we do is we do what we call parallel planning. So we are planning our route to professional sports, because that's what they want to do, right? That's what they're going to be. They're going to be that professional athlete. So that's their main path. And our parallel plan is, what else are we going to do with all this education that we're getting? And how are we going to put those plans together? So it's two roads right next to each other, and we have our plans together. And so what I talk to them about is parallel planning. What else did we want to do? Because when we were little, we wanted to do a job, right? We wanted to do something. And then we kind of work from there. I have a lot of students that want to be teachers or coaches. I have a few nursing students, but most of them are coaches, or they want to be that, they just want to be professional athletes. But we kind of talk about parallel planning. That has worked a lot better to kind of make sure that we're on that track. So when they talk to me, it's like, okay, how's that practice going? All right, so how's this plan going? So their coaches run the first plan, and I run the second plan. And I always talk to my students in the language they understand. I always tell them, your coach puts the play together, you have to go execute it. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to help put your plan together, but you got to execute it. So kind of just the way you talk to them. I will tell you, they don't like the term plan B. So I started using parallel planning, and that has helped kind of guide them into knowing about getting career readiness, how to, get ready for when that part ends. How do we continue on? Emily, would you want to do the next question? It says, for students taking online courses, what is your best practice for reaching out to those who are not consistently submitting attendance?
Oh, sure. I don't know if my answer is the best answer. I would say for our fully online students, I mean, like all of them, they could be living on campus or they could be fully online. There's only so much we can do when it comes to communicating with them. I think a lot of times we get, I don't know, I know that we experience it. I don't know if anybody else on here experiences. We have a lot of professors reach out sometimes for things like, hey, I haven't been able to get a hold of the student. Can you help? And I feel like sometimes we're breaking the news to them of we all have access to pretty much the same things. I can't do much more than you can. Sometimes we're able to maybe text them with communication like campaigns or software, but I think the proactive one thing I've started doing is the proactive, like introducing myself. Who am I? What am I used for as a resource? What are your resources here? Again, preventative instead of the crisis, kind of just reacting to it has helped a lot with my engagement, especially for online students. But it's kind of learning the boundary of just what can I really help with? If a student, I've had one student who just would not respond to me all semester, and then they responded just last week wanting to drop a class after the deadline. I've sent out multiple things. So sometimes it's just I don't know how much else I could have helped them versus this has helped another majority of my students, another population. So just doing what we can. I don't know about anybody else. If you've had any strategies, if anybody else knows, let me know, please.
Don't pay attention to me. We started offering a NARP panel and career and sports panel. It's typically alumni from our program who were particularly successful in college but didn't make it or didn't want to go to the pros, or alums who work or are working as officials, SIDs, ADs, etc. Then it's a peer who they can relate to a bit more. It's also been that is a really great idea. I am probably going to copy and paste that and kind of see how I can make that work. That is awesome.
I want to jump to Eric's comment really quickly. Good luck with your 16-week program. You're going to have so much fun. In terms of what materials should be covered, I have no thoughts on like the athletic material because that is obviously not my specialty. But something that we did learn, we have our students do the learning styles quiz and then the true colors personality assessment. If you've ever done those, the majority of them are all hands-on learners, like not even a little bit of everything, fully hands-on. Reading and writing tends to be the lowest learning style. There might be 1 out of 20. Visual is still pretty low. Auditory is usually second place, but there's still a pretty big gap between auditory and hands-on. And so whatever material that you do cover, I highly encourage you to find a way to make it as hands-on as possible, or they're going to disengage. With the True Colors personality assessment, if you're familiar with them, the majority of our students are orange, which means they are up and moving, they're active, they've got kind of like the goldfish attention span. And not that that's a bad thing, it's just different types of personalities, right? And so that paired with the hands-on learning has really shaped the way that we have decided to do our sessions and activities in our program. And I think that's been one of the most impactful things of what makes it a different type, and that what keeps students coming back. Because do they remember anything we go over? No, not at all. But they remember like what their experience is, and every now and then they will remember a glimmer of something of one of those tools that we have given them. So whatever material you do cover, just make it as engaging as you possibly can, and that will hopefully get them to keep coming.
I want to piggyback off of that too. Every program is different, exactly what you're doing. We have found in our experience, less is definitely more too. Like as you mentioned, they don't seem to remember a lot, but the stuff that we do cover when we go into it and we really have that discussion with them, and it really gets not necessarily to the personal side. We usually try to keep it as much academically focused as we can. But those are the things that stick out to them. So those personality assessments, they take away from that of I'm learning about who I am and how that can help me in my academics versus going over like all the different study materials and tips and tricks. It's kind of focusing on you, and they like that individualized kind of lens focus that we do. if you are interested in hearing more, I know I said it earlier, but we will be presenting at NACADA this October. What's it? The Quest to Connect with the Reluctant Scholar, I believe is our title. If you are not sick of us, please come see us.
Fantasy themed.
Fantasy themed.
So, just to kind of also add on that about athletics, I would tell you if you could use an unplanner, that works really well with my athletes because one of their things is time constraint, right? They're worried about how much time they have in the day when it comes to academics and practice and, traveling and playing. So the unplanner, if you want to reach out to me, I'll kind of share that with you and how that works. So basically an unplanner is just a blank.
Let me pull it up.
Yeah, it is a blank day, right? It's just your entire day, but blank. And so what I ask them to do is they put in when they have class, when they have practice, when they're eating lunch, when they're eating dinner, right? What are they eating? Breakfast, lunch, dinner, your practice times, and your class times. And then we look at all the other empty spaces on there. And we put our study times, we put in when they go to bed. They're not going to tell you when they really go to bed. So I tell them, let's be honest as you can, right? If you're not going to bed till midnight, then let me know, because that's how it is. But yes, I will tell you, utilizing the unplanner for athletics has helped tremendously with my students who struggle with time management. So I utilize that a lot. But
we did that in our Rise session, and that was one of the things that they said was very helpful for them because it shows them how much time they actually have and how they utilize it. But it's only as effective as they are honest. So that is a key part to it.
Yeah, so Ms. Kinsey's kind of sharing what they go over with the unplanner. How do they do it?
So when we start, this whole page is blank. And then we tell them category by category what to fill out. So the very first thing is things that don't change, your class time, your practice time. Then you talk about other responsibilities, like do you have to drop a sibling off at school? Do you have to take your grandma to rehab every 2 weeks? When are you studying? And then you fill in the rest with the fun things. Do you spend 6 hours in the evening playing basketball with your friends? Because we definitely have a student who does that. And then the rest of your time scrolling on TikTok. And so what this does is visually show them, like, if this were the student's final schedule, when they're looking at it and going, oh my God, I have no time to study, I couldn't possibly be successful in class, we say, okay, great, what are you doing Friday afternoon? Because there's nothing there. Or could you wake up a little earlier and just study an hour before you have that class?
No to that one.
They'll say no to that one. What about this window in between these classes here? Is that sometime you could just head to the tutoring center for 30 minutes? Because we also find they tend to build things up in their head. If I'm going to go to tutoring, I've got to be there for 4 hours. And so this shows them, one, you're in charge of your schedule. Two, you have more time than you think you do. And three, even the students with the busiest of schedules usually can find a 30-minute window every other day or so to really go and not submit, but like commit to themselves and feed into themselves. And they'll find that 30 minutes, if they can stick with it, is a lot more impactful than doing absolutely nothing.
Hands-on learners.
Yes.
But this one works really well with athletes. Like I said, it's one of the most useful tools that I have when I'm going through with my students. So I would say that's one that you could definitely use for your athletes. But again, thank you, everybody. Samantha, helping them set up time limits on social media. Yeah, but it does kind of help them realize like, hey, I'm supposed to be studying at this time. Most of my athletes, I will say, utilize the unplanner and it helps them out a lot. Thank you guys and everyone for coming and asking questions. We hope we've given you a little bit you could take with you.
Shout out to our advisors for all the work you do.
Yes.
We know what you're going through.
We know what you're going through. We understand. And if you're a first timer, you got this. You got this. It's going to be fine. We're about a week away from graduation. So this is that time. I know it sounds cheesy, but this is the time that it makes it worth it. And you'll realize that it sounds like the cheesiest answer, like what's your favorite time is when graduation, but it does. It's very emotional. You make a connection with these students and it's important. And you know that it also makes you feel good because you're like, I helped with that. I had a little piece in that chapter. One part of that chapter has my name in it. It might not always be a good sentence afterwards, but there's my name in it. So yes, again, thank you. And I will send it out to Kylie to go ahead and close it out.
Great. Thank you all so much. And As Margarita and Kinsey and Emily shared, thank you all for the work that you do and for attending. And this concludes today's event. Thank you.